the EV charge that pinned his alibi, the night the parking app drew a map. At 9:09 p.m., my phone congratulated me for juicing a car I wasn't driving. Charge complete, the banner beamed. Station, Portico Hotel/Stall B3. Session total, 42 kWh. Receipt sent to shared wallet. Underneath, a map blossomed with a blue pin in a part of town I only visit when I want to remember how expensive apologies can be. The app even attached a cheery photo, a gleaming cable holstered at a charger, the handle still damp from rain, the reflection of someone's jacket caught in the gloss of a fender I know the exact color of. Nate had left at 8 in that jacket, the one that flatters him even when mirrors are Christians about it. Wrap toast, he'd said, 2 words that make celebration feel like paperwork. Then notes with Marco about the sound cut. Don't wait. He had kissed me with the efficient accuracy of a signature. We share the kind of ghost email couples create to discipline coupons and keep travel cards fed. We also share the EV account because convenience and trust speak the same dialect until they don't. I stood by the sink with my hand on a glass I didn't need to rinse and felt the apartment pick a temperature that wasn't mine. In the oven, a cinnamon thing I'd warmed to prove I could be domestic even with witnesses pretended to be a plan. The app chirped again, parking validated via guest elevators. I turned the phone face down the way we agree to on good mornings and immediately flipped it back because I wanted to misbehave correctly and in order. The Portico has a valet smile and a conscience that bills by the hour. Brass taught itself posture on the walls. A pianist in the lobby practiced the absence of blame. The concierge glanced at me the way professionals glance at a man who looks like he may collect a debt from the air, and nodded toward a lane of elevators I didn't have to ask for. In the garage, the chargers glowed the calm blue of objects certain they're helping. Stall B3 was still blinking its sated little heart in a drizzle that had decided to be personal. The hood of Nate's car wore the rain like a thin alibi. I didn't text him. The distance between a thumb and a decision is a cliff on nights like this. I let the elevators decide if I looked like I belonged to someone upstairs. The panel offered a bar of anonymous floors. I picked 23 because that's the kind of number ambitious lobbies reward. On 23, the carpet hushed my shoes and the corridor spelled discretion in tasteful brass. A door near the end stood slightly ajar. Suite 2314 let a seam of warm light leak onto the runner, the way a mouth does when it hasn't decided whether to be a witness. Voices moved inside at the register I hate, too low for public, too warm for innocent. I could have knocked. I could have said his name. Instead, I walked to the service terrace at the hallway's elbow and found air that wasn't curated. The terrace was a glass rectangle attached to the hotel's lungs. Ductwork hummed like anxious crickets. I put my palms on the wet rail because sometimes your hands decide to be serious before the rest of you. The city below rehearsed being complicated. Behind me, a door breathed and the suite emptied a man into the corridor. Nate stepped out with his jacket off, shirt open a notch beyond daytime. He saw me the way a mirror sees news. Behind him, Marco appeared in the seam of light, careful mouth, good shoulders, the sort of posture that lets a room feel like it wasn't just used. Marco didn't say anything. He didn't have to audition. He inclined his head with the good manners of furniture and stayed at the doorway as if being available were a pledge. "Evan," Nate said, my name with the softness of a receipt. "Your car and I are doing great," I said, because jokes are the leash I use to keep panic from bolting. It just wrote to tell me how pleased it was to charge outside a hotel we don't stay at. Nate's mouth arranged itself into the expression he uses when he's trying to decide if a room can handle a reasonable version of him. He looked at the drain in the terrace floor and then at me, The way men look when they are trying to make an apology fit into a hand. "Not here," he said. His eyes flicked toward the suite's ceiling corner where cameras pretend not to exist. "End of the hall. The glass listens better than the paint." We were already at the end of the hall, already in air. He joined me at the rail and opened his hands as if unfolding a plan he didn't want to follow through on. "I lied when I left," he said. "He doesn't decorate when he decides to be correct. Rap happened. People said goodbye in their best grammar. Then I told myself I wanted 30 minutes where being interesting didn't need an invoice." "Which direction?" I asked, because names are handles and I like my hands full when floors tilt. "Marco." Nate nodded. Marco stayed inside the seam of light with the professionalism of a good concession. He did not apologize, he didn't dare me. He let the air have us. "Are you sleeping with him?" The question is a cliff. There isn't a scenic route. You count to one and use your mouth like an adult. "Not yet," he said, clean, immediate. Then lower, the honesty that knows exactly which muscle will bruise. "I brought my mouth." Rain tried harder. It found the opening at my collar and settled in like someone who expected to be thanked. I lifted 2 fingers to the soft place at his wrist where men keep their apologies and felt his pulse write my name without permission. His eyes closed the way doors do when they want to be touched. "You like the sort of wanting that proves something kindness can't," I said. "I didn't make it cruel. Cruelty is the lazy substitute for precision. You treat intimacy like a sport and honesty like off-season training." "You like to coach," he said. One corner of his mouth attempted a bad idea and failed politely. "Which is unfair and why we made it this far." "What do you want?" I asked. Now not the apology you tuned for daylight. He stepped into the inch that had turned into a lie while we were speaking. Heat crossed cotton and chose me. He didn't touch my face. He spoke close enough that punctuation found my lower lip. "I want to go home," he said. "I want you to want me where our towels know our names and desire isn't rented by the hour." Behind him, the suite door made a civilian sound and closed, which is the most courteous thing a third person can do. I kissed Nate. Not hunger first. Relief. Relief is the kind of appetite you can walk across a lobby without making a stranger pick a side. He leaned into it like paying a debt that finally liked its math. My palm slid under his shirt to the heat at the small of his back where his body keeps its best arguments. He made the quiet sound he cannot perform on cue. The glass beside us threw our shapes back thinner than truth. I used my mouth to correct the proportion. I stopped before the terrace could pretend to be a witness. He kept his forehead near mine like punctuation refuses to flatter grammar. In the elevator down, we stood with the deliberate distance of men who know that touching sometimes demands a future you can't name yet. The concierge smiled the measured smile that understands ledgers. Outside, weather declined to narrate us. I loved it for that. At home, the cinnamon had performed ridiculous loyalty. We ate it with our fingers because forks would have lied. He leaned against the counter with the posture that means he's willing to be moved. I slid my palm under his shirt again and found the heat like an address that belongs to both of us. He tipped in, gratitude making him heavy and correct. We were careful in bed, not the kind of careful that kills heat, the kind that knows where to fold it. He knows where to set his palm on my ribs so the rest of me turns without issuing a press release. I know where his shoulder hides when it doesn't want to confess, and how to coax it into truth with weight and breath. I won't draw you a map. I'll tell you the room remembered to breathe, and morning forgave us because it had other work. We slept the sleep that has terms and conditions. Light drafted across the wall the color of second chances. He made coffee the way he does when he wants me to listen. I opened the window to see if Mercy could afford our rent. The app sat open between us with its chirpy records, a neat little list of hardware that thought it knew about love. He started with small truths because small truths keep larger ones upright. The notes had run long. The view made the city feel negotiable. Marco's attention had the grammar he wanted to try on. He ran out of script and chose the useful kind of silence, the kind that makes your ribs available. Then he said the part I could keep. He said he is tired of being interesting for a living, that he wanted to be wanted the way stupid teenagers are, earnest, badly lit, forgiven in advance. He said he imagined my mouth more than once on that terrace and felt ashamed of the math. He said he was sorry like a man who knows sorry is a tool, not an eraser. I didn't forgive him at the counter. Forgiveness is a daylight animal and morning's charge. I told him to put on the coat that doesn't belong to penthouse lifts and walk with me to the canal where water lies about Paris, and we let it. On the bench we like, pigeons performed competence, and a runner's breath taught our bodies something about cadence. He hooked his thumb in my pocket like humility. I let him. 2 days later, I saw Marco in a lobby that smelled like lemon and ambition. He gave me the nod men give when they've chosen to be furniture on purpose. He didn't apologize and I didn't deputize. We stood in front of a mirror that spelled our names backward and didn't insist on meaning. It isn't that we agreed. It's that we learned how to read ourselves both ways. The charger still sends tidy little receipts. I don't trust their fonts or my inbox. I trust the square of light at 4 when it climbs our wall like a thought that has finally put on shoes. I trust the heat under Nate's shirt at the small of his back when my hand decides to remember its job. If another blue pin appears and tries to volunteer my location to my chest, I will do what I did the night the parking app drew a map. Find air, choose kissing over theater, walk him home with my palm on the part of him that knows the address, and keep teaching our door, gentle, stubborn, local, to open from the inside.